All right, and welcome back to the Manchild Show, audio and digital. We're talking NFL today, and joining us is former NFL safety, NFL analyst, and lead host of the Opening Drive on Sirius XM Radio, Channel 88. Let's welcome Emmy Award-winning broadcaster Solomon Wilcots. Hello, Solomon. How are you?
Gentlemen, doing great. Jim, Paul, great to be on with you.
Hey, we're pumped to be talking football, but before we do that, I heard you're returning to my old roots in Queens. You've got something going on Memorial Day weekend. Tell the fans out there about it.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be there in New York City to attend the Zimmer Biomet APP New York City Open at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, and it's about pickleball. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. You guys know that. I'll be there with Zimmer Biomet, the leader in knee replacement technology, to talk about sports injuries and the advancement in knee replacement surgery. This, guys, is not your grandmother's medicine. I have had joint replacement surgery, and I tell you right now, everyone who gets it will tell you how much better they feel after they get through the process. So people who are living with knee pain or any kind of knee injuries, they really should consult with a doctor. And you can go to the Zimmer Biomet website at www.pickleballknee.com to find a doctor and find out more information.
That's awesome. All right. Well, congrats on that. Always good to be supporting these wonderful, wonderful causes. All right, let's talk some NFL. We may be in the offseason, but the NFL never has an offseason in my mind.
That's
and
right.
One of the things that just happened is Brock Purdy got paid. Let's talk about quarterbacks getting paid, and in particular, San Francisco bucking up to pay Brock.
Look, think about what Brock Purdy did. I think a lot of people are still throwing shade at Brock because he's got a really good coach in Kyle Shanahan. He's got a good system and surrounded by some good players, right? And Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams on that offensive line and Frank Warner on the defense. But people should keep in mind, let's have some context here. He saved the 49ers. You don't hear about the horrible move made in 2021 to go up and get Trey Lance and give up all these first-round picks, that if it were not for the very next year, remember when they took Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft, at that time, Jimmy Garoppolo was on the team. Trey Lance started the year. He got hurt. Jimmy G got hurt. And if Brock Purdy doesn't come in to take that team to the NFC title game, you're going to be hearing a lot of reports killing John Lynch, killing the 49ers for what they had squandered to go get Trey Lance. And it was Brock Purdy who made up the difference, right, for the money and the draft picks they had given up. And I think now, after 2 trips to the NFC title game, a trip to the Super Bowl, he set an NFL record for yards per pass attempt during the 2023 season. He's done some wonderful things for this franchise. And even Jed York said it was time to make him a full-time partner of the franchise. So I think he's earned it. I think he saved the team from maybe some previous moves that didn't work out great. And now let's see how far they can go as they move into the future.
And Solomon, what's your temperature here on the 49ers? Because, this is a team that had a mass roster exodus this offseason. It happened last year to the Buffalo Bills too. And apparently the demise was greatly exaggerated for the Buffalo Bills. They had MVP Josh Allen, and they made an incredibly deep run in the playoffs. Do you foresee the same destiny here for the 49ers? They've let a lot of guys go. A lot of people seem down on the 49ers this year, but maybe it's just not a rebuild, but perhaps a reset.
Yeah, look, there are certain teams. I think you saw it, and you just said it with the Bills, but the Chiefs have kind of been through these kind of transitions, right? They go to 3 straight Super Bowls while doing it. I think what you have to start to do is take a look at some of these teams, and you look at the coaching staff, and you look at the general manager, and you look at the culture, and you say, well, they have, I think, the right pieces in place as an organization to be able to withstand some of the transitions that you see when it comes to the players. As long as you're strong at the top of the organization, you can be consistently good year over year because the coaching is the same, the teaching is the same, the culture of the franchise is the same. Not enough people are talking about Robert Saleh coming back as a defensive coordinator. And I think that's one of the things that kind of hurt him last year, the repeated moves from different defensive coordinators to another. You saw some step backs and you saw the injuries. I think it all caught up with him. But I think having Robert Saleh back, this was the coordinator they started out with when Shanahan first came there. And now I think you're going to see things sort of even out on both sides of the ball where you're going to see high yield of production. To me, as long as they've got a healthy Christian McCaffrey and they've got a good, strong offensive line with Trent Williams, they're going to be a good football team. Watch and see. I think they're going to be really good. And I think at the receiver position, even though Deebo Samuel has moved on, I think Jawan Jennings has always been good. Now he gets to become a full-time player. And I just think at across the board, they're going to be a really good competitive football team.
Solomon, we're in the great state of New York, so I want to talk to you about all three New York teams. I want to start with my Giants. Talk to me about the Giants draft. How well do you think they performed in this draft? They got a quarterback, got him in a late first round. Obviously, couldn't get the number one overall pick. Sounds like they tried to, but they took Abdul Carter, obviously, and just the depth of this Giants draft. How do you think the Giants panned out?
I love the Giants draft, and I'm not pandering. I'm telling you right now, I really do love, because I think, look, they were good defensively last year. I think quietly underrated. They just didn't get a lot of help from the offense. We didn't see a complementary style of play where an offense could take advantage of what the defense was able to do. I always love sexy Dex. Dexter Lawrence is phenomenal. I think he's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the game. You bring over Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau's been up and down, but he's still been a good football player. And now you bring over Abdul Carter. I'm telling you, man, they're going to be really good up front. I do have some questions about the secondary, but I think they're going to be ferocious when it comes to defending the run. I think they'll be good at applying pressure to the opposing quarterback. So I'm feeling good about the defense. Now let's talk about the draft. My favorite pick is your fourth round selection in Cam Scatterbo, because this was a guy that I had high on my list of 25 running backs was drafted in this year's draft class, right? This guy, for me, was one of the best. Outside of the top two and Amarion Hampton, obviously, and Ashton Genty, the next best running back for me was Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State. Absolutely love him. This guy breaks tackles. He doesn't need you to block everybody. He's got soft hands that can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. So he's a 3-down running back now. But his power and his physicality, along with his agility and his quick feet and subtle hands, he's going to be a real good weapon that I know Brian Dable is salivating on how they're going to use him. Hopefully you won't need Jackson Dart until maybe the end of the year, and they can get something out of Russ offensively. The offense has to produce more than 14 points a game, guys. They've got to be better than they were last year. If they are, I think the defense is up to the challenge. But both sides are going to have to complement each other. And so I like the draft class, because I think you have guys there who are going to be difference makers for the Giants, not just in 2025, but in the foreseeable future.
All right, let's get to the better New York team. Enough of your Giants nerds. Let's get to the goddamn Jets. Solomon Wilcots. The Jets went all in on Justin Fields this offseason. Was that the right move? Are you a Justin Fields fan? He's 26 years of age. It seems like he's probably got his best opportunity to truly prove that he belongs in the NFL.
I am a Justin Fields fan, but he's not the quarterback that you want throwing the ball 40 times a game, dropping back forward. Our league sometimes gets a little carried away with, quote, the quarterback, thinking that it's some Hollywood movie that he's got to walk out there at high noon and win the day, right? No, it's called a football team for a reason. And to me, the teams that are smart, and I do believe that Aaron Glenn believes along this pathway, just like his former coach and Dan Campbell. In those early years in Detroit, they didn't put it all on the quarterback, on Jared Goff. They built a football team around Jared Goff. They gave him an offensive line. They gave him talented running backs like what the Jets have on the roster now. I love the tandem of running backs, and they've even added a third that could surprise some people, that if they could just run the football, and I think the quarterback is the runner. So that's why I think they should focus on the RPO game, play action pass. Use the run to set up the passing game and take your shots down the field. The coverage defines itself a little bit better. It allows your offensive line to protect the quarterback a little bit better. It allows your receivers to get separation at the second level when you're coming off of RPO and play action. Guess what? That makes Justin Fields a better quarterback in the passing game when everything is coming off run action. So that's why I believe he can be a better quarterback than what we've seen from him at his previous stops.
Solomon, it sounds like from the answer to that question that you seem excited about Aaron Glenn as the next Jets head coach. Let's talk about it. What kind of culture is he trying to bring? What kind of head coach you think he's going to be?
Oh, he's going to be a no-nonsense guy. Look, he wasn't trying to be disrespectful to Aaron Rodgers. He only wanted to know one thing. Do you want to play football? Now, those of us who are on this side of it, guys, we know that just means that's a simple question that every coach is trying to determine with their player, whether you're a guy who's been in it for 20 years or you're a rookie who's just now showing up. The love of the game is so paramount because it's hard, guys. And I'll be honest with you, for a guy who's doing it 20 years, it's even harder. He knew Aaron Rodgers wanted to take some time off this offseason. That's what the Steelers are finding out. He didn't want to be around the guys. He wanted to go do his own thing. And guess what? That's his right to do so when you've been around as long as he has and the 4-time MVP. But Aaron Glenn asked the fundamental question up front. Do you want to play football? And for the guy to say, well, I'm interested, that's not good enough. and that's what Aaron Glenn brings to the table. This is a guy who played for and was coached by one of the best coaches we've ever seen in Bill Parcells. Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, these are Texas A&M Aggie guys that are just die-in-the-wool football guys. You got to know what you're getting, and that's the culture that they come from. Those are the coaches that they played and worked for, right? And so they have a certain mindset that they want from their football team that's going to be centered around toughness, the guys who want to come to work, who are competitive and want to put the work in and do what's required to win football games. And if you look at the running back, the backfield for this football team, they're built to do some of the same things that you saw from a Jahmyr Gibbs and a David Montgomery in Detroit. They have similar components where you can build it behind an offensive line, a tandem of running backs, and a quarterback who can run it too. That's going to make it really tough to get the offense off the field.
Hey, Solomon, there's been a little bit of scuttlebutt about Jamal Adams perhaps returning to the Jets. We'll see if this really happens. He has an interest. You like it or you don't? Give me a quickie on that.
Look, I was a big Jamal Adams fan when he was there in New York, and then he goes to Seattle. He had injury problems. He's a physical guy that kind of plays like a linebacker, right? He was never a guy that factored at the third level of coverage or played out in space, even though the dude is a physical guy. The game has evolved since his early days there with the Jets, where you could dominate around the line of scrimmage. And unless you're going to use him specifically in that role, I think you've got to be very careful if you're going to pay him a lot of money thinking he's going to be the player that he once was. Look, I love his courage. I love his attitude. I love his energy, but he has not been able to stay on the field with his style of play. It's a collision sport, and nobody did it better than him. And he hasn't been able to hold up to that same kind of punishment that he's dishing out. So it remains to be seen if he can now get back to that, because I think it's been quite some time since, he was an every down player and been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, there's no question about it. He says he's healthy. We'll see if he gets that opportunity coming up in an NFL training camp. Let's go to the other New York team. And boy, Buffalo Bills fans are an interesting bunch. They love diving through tables and they're seeking a Super Bowl and all these things. But what about, let's start off up top. Sean McDermott. He's a guy that has brought back stability to the Buffalo Bills organization that they haven't had in a long time. But I've heard the whispers from Bills fans saying, is he the right guy to get us over the hump? Because they've been close the last couple of years, but they haven't been able to do it. Is Sean McDermott the right guy to turn and really get the Buffalo Bills over the hump?
I think he is. I think it's a good question to ask because you're going up against teams. I remember when the Bengals came in there, it looked like, that the Bills were cruising in 2021 to face, Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs yet again, and Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon came in, man, they put it on them. They really did, right? And then for whatever reason, year over year, they're able to beat the Chiefs in the regular season. But then in the postseason, for whatever reason, can't close the deal. Now, look, I think they're a really good football team. This team is not what it is without Sean McDermott. They're not what they are without Brandon Beane. I think they've been a really good tandem. This is what happens to some organizations when they've had some success. They begin to lose patience and they start just wanting something different just to have something new and novel, right? Sean McDermott is why you're here. He's been a really good coach. He hired Joe Brady. I thought that was a moment where the organization went to another level. The fact that they have won, if you look at the last 5 to 6 years, no team, I think they're right there with as many wins as any team in the NFL. So that's why you don't, if it ain't broke, man, don't fix it. I know we're all searching for perfection, but don't let enemy become the good of great. You know, don't let, good become the enemy of being great. Keep it going. Keep the train on the tracks, and you're going to punch through. You saw what Josh Allen did 1 year ago. He was so much better just protecting the football, right? So this team is getting better and better, even though they're losing and moving on from players like, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. They've had to replace some really good guys, but yet still been able to achieve success and win games. To me, that's the true measure of a good head coach. You're able to transition, but still keep winning. And now they've won 5 straight division titles. What are we getting upset about? Why are we trying to run a guy out of town?
How close are they, Solomon?
I think Brandon Beane put it best. He says, look, we're very close. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to dismantle the things that's right about the franchise, right? And you just look to fix the things that need to be improved upon. It ain't Sean McDermott, Look, I'll share this with you. This job with the Bills was his very first ever head coaching job. Let's go back to Andy Reid. You think 6 years into his first head coaching job, he was the same coach as he is now? 25 years later when he started winning the Super Bowls, right?
Of course not. Yeah.
Coaches get better just like players get better. The good thing about coaches is why you give them a longer, ramp, a longer runway, is because they just get better with time. There's no wear and tear when it comes to that position. So, look, you got a coach, say, like we were talking about Aaron Glenn. If you think he's a first-time head coach, if you don't think first-time head coaches don't make mistakes, I got news for you. They all do, even the Hall of Famers, even the great ones. Bill Belichick in his first run-up as a head coach was not the Bill Belichick we saw at the end of his career. It became perfection over time. I think many times we want a head coach to come in there and be the end game 1 year into their coaching career. And it's just unheard of. It just doesn't happen in our league.
You did bring up someone, Bill Belichick, at the end of his career. Who's that team he lost to in his final NFL game? Oh, it was the New York Jets. So remember that, Bill Belichick.
Never misses a chance, Solomon. He
Yeah,
never misses a chance. Hey, I see you wearing it on your chest there, Cincinnati Bengals. So let's get in the dirt here for a minute. Trey Hendrickson, the contract, they've got their 2 receivers now, but this thing still is kind of a lingering thorn in their side. Give me your thoughts about what's going to happen here with Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, Cincinnati Bengals, I think they know they need to sign Trey Hendrickson. There is no other option. I think they're going to do it, but I would love to see them do it with a little bit more feel-good quotient to it. I think Cincinnati Bengals have played brinksmanship over the last several years, whether it was Jesse Bates, whether it was T. Higgins, whether it was T. Higgins again, and then Jamar Chase. Coming down to the last part of the year, not rewarding them to the contract. They're having to play through it. It sends a message to the other guys in the locker room. And that's why Joe Burrow has been very proactive. And because I think he understands the kind of organization he's playing for. And I think it cost them the playoffs the last 2 years. It certainly cost them the playoffs last year when they lose the first game of the year to the Patriots, guys. And that team, the Bengals, were not enthusiastic about playing. It looked like they were playing with heavy hearts. The morale of the team was at an all-time low. They ended up missing the playoffs by 1 game. All they needed was 1 more game. And had they really had everyone signed up, ready to go, they could have not only started faster, they would have had Jamar Chase under contract at around 30 to 35 mil a year. Now they're paying him 40 mil a year. So they would have saved the money, engendered more goodwill going into last year. And I think the same is true with Trey Hendrickson, who's beloved, by the way, in the locker room. He's had more sacks, more pressures than any other edge rusher over the last 2 years. And I think the Bengals look at a guy who's 30 years old and wondering if he can still keep up the production. I think you should be banking on that, the fact that he can.
And by the way, Solomon, I call that the Jerry Jones syndrome.
That's right.
Waiting
That's right.
and paying later. It's a new terminology out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. No, the kids on the internet. It's out there. Okay,
Wait
go ahead,
now,
Paul.
wait now, pay more later.
Pay more
right?
later. Exactly.
Wow, a sound strategy. I don't know why
Yes.
more teams aren't using it. Yeah,
I don't know. I think you can pay early and then add more to your team later. That's how we're talking about team building here. But hey, look, I think the model is kind of what you're seeing in Philadelphia, right? With Howie Roseman. The model is not what you've seen in Dallas and in Cincinnati. They're paying at the top of the market. They're paying late. And then it does really limit the resources that you can use to build out the rest of your team.
Right.
And Solomon, let's finish off there. One more on Hendrickson here. He has been he was at a point earlier this offseason granted permission from the Bengals to seek out trade partners and look at what that would look like. There's no way that the Bengals, after last year, their defense being so horrible, that one guy in the office room goes, guys, I have an idea. Let's trade the guy who led the league in sacks last year. That will solve our defensive issues. The trade stuff has to be all nonsense, right, Solomon?
See, you just nailed it. I'm going to tell you how much of a nonsense it is. The Bengals have placed an economic value on Trey Hendrickson. The problem is that economic value in terms of what they're willing to pay him, right, in a contract extension, is below the asking value that they wanted in trade compensation. That tells you how misaligned they are. They're literally was asking more for him on the trade market than they're willing to pay him just to stay on their team. So they need to be more calibrated, need to be more deliberate, and just be a little bit more user-friendly when it comes to your players. You know you want to keep them, so you got to pay them the market rate. If you'd have did it sooner at this time last year, you wouldn't have to pay at the top of the market 35 to 40 million, but that's what they're going to have to pay to keep them.
All right. NFL safety, current NFL analyst, lead host of the Opening Drive. We listen to you on Sirius XM Channel 88 all the time in the morning. Solomon Wilcots, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of time this morning.
Jim, Paul, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on the show. All the best to you.
All right. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. More right after this.